Good evening and welcome to this special meeting of the Planning Board of the City of Birmingham, Wednesday, April 30th, 2025. Could we please call the roll?
Scott Klein.
Present.
Robin Boyle.
Here.
Stuart Jeffries.
Here.
Kurt Kozak.
Here.
Daniel Sher. Janelle Wilker-Boyce.
Here.
Brian Williams. Duncan Curry. Missy Mermin. Carter Anderson. Olivia Betanzas.
All right, we are court. There are no minutes to approve at this meeting, so I'll jump right into chairperson's comments. Thank you for coming. Tonight is a special meeting of the Planning Board, and tonight we're going to be performing a pre-application discussion related to a project of the city's at 400 East Lincoln. Because this is a special meeting and that's the only thing on the agenda, I thought I'd take just a minute or two to quickly spend a few more minutes than I tend to at these comments to explain what we're doing and why we're here. As many of you know, if you're watching at home or you're here in the room, the city is planning a project at 400 East Lincoln, the current YMCA building, related to a senior center and a community center. Typically in the past, because of the way our ordinance is set up, projects that are undertaken by the city on land zoned PP, the zoning ordinance requires nothing of them, essentially. So the city is free to do as it wishes, which in many cases is a good thing to allow the city to preserve taxpayer dollars. That being said, when they come to the board, particularly this board, with what used to be referred to as a courtesy review, it was usually late in the project and it was not based on any zoning. So this board was often frustrated as to what our role really was. I'd like to thank both the city manager, Ms. Ecker, as well as the city commission for listening to those frustrations and putting forth on our agenda moving forward, putting together a process for public projects that can help alleviate these concerns. Tonight is a bit of a test run, if you will, on a draft of an idea, concept of an idea, related to that process. This board put together what it calls some design guidelines related to zoning in particular several months ago that the team on this project has been working to try and fulfill. That is what we ultimately will be looking at this board, and then the city commission will make their decisions moving forward. But for tonight, we are doing what's called a pre-application discussion. This is before a site plan is firmly completed. In my world, I spend time in land development. This is usually, in my estimation, between 25 and 35% complete, if you will, schematic. And our job is to provide high-level reactions. Do we like this? Do we not? Do we see issues? Do we not? And so I would like to remind the board and those watching and any residents that are going to partake tonight that that is our job tonight. High level, what do we think about the site plan that is being presented? What we're not going to do is talk about whether we like the idea of a community center, whether we like the idea of how it's funded, or any of those sort of details, because none of that is under the purview of this board. None of that is part of tonight's discussion. Tonight's discussion is, what do we think of the site plan that's being presented for a community center, senior center at 400 East Lincoln? As I alluded to, there will be an opportunity for the public to provide input. After some discussion here, I will call for public input. If you are present, please come forward to either microphones. I'll call on you and you can give me your name, address, and provide your brief comments. If you are at home watching on Zoom, please use the raise your hand function in the bottom center console. If you're at home watching on TV, you're out of luck. But with that, Mr. Dupuy, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
Fantastic. So let's move into it. Pre-application discussion, 400 East Lincoln, Birmingham Senior and Community Center. Mr. Dupuy, you want to tee it up?
I have about 4 sentences as a preamble.
Perfect.
Because you did a lot of work for me. Thank you so much. I appreciate that a lot, actually. The only things I was going to say that there's, just to set the stage a little bit as a reminder, because it's been so long, we bought this building in summer 2023, 2 years ago almost exactly. And since then, the planning board's had 3 touch points total, one of which is tonight. The first was the rezoning that was required for this property, that we completed that in October of 24. The city commission subsequently approved that, so that's how we're at PP. And then we developed those design guidelines, as you mentioned, Chair Klein, in December of 2024. So this touch point is the first one that's with someone other than me. We've got a huge team behind this. Jim and the team in the crowd will take you through the bulk of tonight, but I encourage you to ask questions, and as you said, stick to the site plan. That's what we're predominantly looking at tonight, and he'll clarify, but I think most of the feedback they're looking for tonight. So, Jim?
Yes, hi. Good evening. Jim Stock, Newman Smith Architecture. Thank you for seeing us. Appreciate, at short notice, having us in and taking a look at our site plan. I'm logged in here. I have a slightly different order of slides that, for you to look at tonight. So same site plan or same presentation, just some slides are moved around. So, and I'm going to start really quickly with the existing site, right? So where we are today at 400 East Lincoln, if we start looking at the existing site, owned by the YMCA or formerly owned by the YMCA, there were 74 parking spaces there. If we count the St. James Park parking spaces, there were 55 parking spaces. And our best estimate down Floyd Street, there were 17 spaces from a parallel parking point of view. So within that site, kind of the site that we're working with today, there were 146 parking spaces. Additionally, we looked at what was surrounding our site as well. So along Lincoln, going from Grant all the way to the street to the west that I can never remember the name of, next to the church, there were 23 parking spaces. We are the city is in contact with the church because when there's not services, that is parking spaces that may be available to use for the community center. Additionally, towards the east with the bank and the dentist's office, there are additional parking spaces that may be able to use, after hours, weekends, that can contribute towards the parking for this community center. So, and then also, down Edgewood itself, there are 5 parking spaces, parallel parking spaces that we've identified, basically up to the property, not going any further into the residential district. But additionally, not shown on this plan, there are 10 additional parking spaces, parallel parking spaces, on the east side of Edgewood that could contribute to this parking in this neighborhood for this project. So all being told, in this area, there's about 103 parking spaces, okay? Additionally, I'd also like to level set on where parking is for Next in their existing location. So they really have 2 lots. They have an east lot and they have a west lot. East lot, there are 45 parking spaces. In their west lot, they have 110 parking spaces, 9 barrier-free parking spaces total. So they have 155 with that where they are existing today. So that comes to our site. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So the idea here was to, of course, provide a building, and this is a 2-story building. This is roughly just over 47,000 square feet in area. It is, and so like as we mentioned, we are up to the property line on Lincoln. We are close to the property line on Edgewood, and we've organized this building in an efficient manner, in a north-south axial manner, to preserve as much parking on site as possible for this building. We should also note that at one point we were about 41 feet into the park. That didn't go over real well. We have revised our parking area, so we're taking the exact same area that we have working with today. You'll also note that we are kind of reconfiguring how Floyd Street operates. We've moved the entrance, and I'll zoom in a little bit here. We've moved the entrance a little bit west, and we provided parking that is 90 degrees to the property line on the east side of Floyd Street. Still allowing egress from Lincoln into the parking area for the dental office and for the bank. Still allowing easy egress into the multifamily development we have here on the adjacent site, and then easy access through the site. We've actually have the dumpster at the end of that parking area, so away from the residential district. That's a dumpster that would have, of course, a screen wall around it. This might be maybe a 6 or 7 yard dumpster. But with that, as you come onto the site, we're able to maneuver through the parking area, and that's where we have a number of barrier-free parking spaces that parallel the building. So really easy for some of our older members of Next to get into the building. So they're no longer traversing through the parking area. Very convenient parking for them. We have a formal, wouldn't say formal, but we have a canopy for them. So, they go on trips, they have a bus they load onto, so that would be a place undercover where they can load onto that bus. Then, of course, they can either, maneuver through the parking area, come back out on Lincoln, or on Edgewood. Additionally, what we've done is because we've made the building essentially narrow, it aligns with the existing crossing on Lincoln that we have. And we've now taken that axis across the front of the building and then into the park. And then what you see here is we've proposed a path around the park that not only can the residents of the city use, but folks that are members of Y and the YMCA. So we've provided an amenity within that park that everyone can use. And we provided a convenient linkage to that as well. That being said, on site we have 125 parking spaces. Typically, for a building of this size, we like to provide 3.5 parking spaces per 1,000. So that's about 165 parking spaces that we need for a development of this size. So that's why I start to mention the parking spaces that surround the site essentially. The space is available at the church, the space is available at the dental and banking office, the space is available on streets, the parallel parking, things like that. So really, pushing us over 200 for parking that would be really delegated for a building such as this. Height-wise, we recognize that the bank on the corner here is about 30 feet high. We also recognize that that is part of the zone as a 30-foot height. Our building's slightly taller. We're at 36 feet for this, so we would have to respectfully ask for a variance in terms of height, or not.
Don't need a variance.
Don't need a variance. Permission, perhaps, as a better term. And that's all driven with the height of the gym, right? And we really kind of reverse engineer it. You need about 19 to 20 feet to the underside of steel to play volleyball in a gym. So by the time you do that, add roof structure and things like that, and it starts to drive the height of the gym, which really drives the height of the building. We have walked the site, and we have Michael Duell and Associates on our team for the landscape architecture. And what you start to see here are some of the suggestions that he has suggested. Before we had a parking lot that was really all parking, not as much landscaping as we showed today, but he's suggested numerous areas around the site which we can provide landscape. Have we done the calculation just yet? No, we have not. But what we've also tried to show on site is the 32-inch high masonry wall that parallels Lincoln. Then start to screen the parking area. And then we've also done the same off Edgewood as well. We have the main entrance of the building, as you can see, kind of midpoint in the building here. Very visible, as what we can see in the renderings coming up, that when you're driving down Lincoln and approaching the site, you absolutely have no question of where the entrance is to the building. That being said, I'll go into the floor plans real quick. I don't know why they shifted. why they shifted. That's a little weird. So I'm going to go here. It's weird. Bear with me.
57.
Thank you. Yeah, I could pass a lot of this stuff, right? So main level floor plan, it's a 3-story building. The only thing in the lower level is a mechanical room, building storage room, pool equipment room. On the main level, we come in where this arrow is showing here. So we come into a lobby area, right? And that's a control point for the YMCA who is going to operate the building. So we're able to check in, right? If we need to speak to someone in the admin area, which is adjacent to that check-in area, we do have the admin area. Next to that in yellow, we have a 1,000 square foot child watch area. But we're able to walk right into the lobby, check in, and come right onto the floor of the basketball court. Adjacent to that is the next living room. They do have a separate exterior entrance. That was part of their programmatic needs. We have multi-purpose rooms and locker rooms located here. Multi-purpose room 4 might be a larger exercise class, like a cycling class or a Zumba class, perhaps. Next to the living room here, we have 2 multi-purpose rooms, 2 and 3 we call them, and these are more hospitality in nature. So if we might have a higher level of finish, better AV accommodations, better acoustics, for example. So really great for speakers and perhaps a small concert or something like that. Bridal shower on the weekend, perhaps. Next to that, we have a 5-lane pool. And this is actually what we deem really a barrier-free pool. We actually have a ramp that goes into the pool. So it goes from 0 down to this area, which is 3'8". So a really large area, water depth of about 3'8". So great for senior aerobics, water aerobics, things like that. And then also we have an observation area here where we've organized almost like a bar. You know, we would, you're able to, look into the pool. That's where your son or daughter might be taking swim lessons. So we kind of organize this area of the building to accommodate that. Also within the building, we have a small, what we would deem a catering kitchen. So let's say if you're having a bridal shower, that's maybe where a caterer would come in, set up, and then cater the event. Or even if the Next or the YMCA, they have some culinary cooking classes that would be held in that kitchen. Using the main common stair, we have a 2-story lobby in this location, elevator located here, so very conveniently positioned next to the lobby. We're able to come up the stair and get right into the walking track. And we provided, rather than having someone have to go down to the locker room and drop their stuff off and then get onto the track, we've provided some kit lockers here and some coat hooks perhaps that, if you just want to walk when it's a nasty day out in the winter, you can do so really easily. Adjacent to that, with views out towards Edgewood and then into the pool below, is their YMCA wellness area. So think all their cardio machines and strength machines and things like that. Across the corridor, we have the Next fitness area. So this is more modeled after a hotel fitness area. Just south of that, we have multi-purpose rooms 5 and 6. And much like multi-purpose rooms 2 and 3, these are rooms that are able to be divided with a movable partition. So it gives more flexibility within these rooms as well. So these rooms would be more geared towards fitness classes and things of that nature. And then at the end, we have what we call our multi-purpose room number 1. That's more of an art base. So you do painting in there and sculpture and things like that. We might have a polished concrete floor just for ease of maintenance. But we've also started to identify these areas in blue that start to help and give an area for people that are just hanging out in the building. So we have built-in booths that might look down into the pool, for example. So if you're there early, you get out of work early, and you need to type a few emails, you might even use these areas to do a little work before your class starts, perhaps. And we also have an enclosed study rooms, dotted throughout the floor plan. that, permit a little more privacy, perhaps. I'll see if I can go back. So any questions before, or should I go into the elevations? Should we go?
I think
Good?
keep going. huh?
Okay,
Thank you.
let's do that, of course. I'm gonna try to switch to mine real quick, because I do have some stats I want to show you guys. See if this works. There we go. So we started our design, so back in February, we had an architectural visualization survey. And to kick that off, we started to identify the historical context and local context that we have within the community. So this slide really captures the historical nature of the city hall we have here, of the library, of Adachi, of the community house, just to start to show the character of the existing historical buildings that you have, really in your city. From there we dive into it and we broaden out a bit. You start to think about the new developments that are happening within the city. You start to think about the one stream that is an addition, onto a church, right? And I chose this photograph purposely because you start to see the contrast and the difference between really traditional residential architecture and something else that is being built in the city, such as One Stream. Did the same thing with the ad agency here. You start to see the modern architecture next to the historical architecture, even within the downtown neighborhood. Of course, we all know Daxton. And then we have the building over on Merrill, which is really a clean palette of white brick and glass and concrete. And then, of course, we have the Restoration Hardware building that's being built. We start to zoom in a little bit more to think about the context as in direct relationship to what we are building today. We, of course, have the church right next door, which, of course, is being added onto, being more of a masonry building. Right across the street on Lincoln, we have a white clapboard house. We know the earth tones of the bank building, and then a little bit of brick and metal panel that happens on the multifamily that is adjacent to our site. Then, of course, down Edgewood, we have single-family residences of traditional residential construction. So that being said, we had our survey on February 10th during a City Commission special meeting workshop. Notices went to the public on January 29th. We had 69 participants, and these folks were they had the option of participating online or in person using Mentimeter software and the QR code. So you're able to log right in with the QR code and participate in this survey. And the whole idea was the survey was based on a book by Malcolm Gladwell called Blink. And he has found, and he's of the proponent of, you make better decisions in a snap, essentially, instead of ruminating over a decision. So it's called thin slicing. So we went through these images quickly, and it was really, I didn't give much background, maybe two or three minutes apiece. And you like it or you didn't like it, and we can show in a very quick nature of what the residents felt were appropriate for this type of building. The survey focused on exterior materials, building entries, and exterior form. So, without going too in deep with this, the items that we have in yellow with the star, these are things that folks felt, or really materials that these folks felt were appropriate for this type of building. So here we had board form concrete, exposed steel, standing seam metal roof, really a warm soffit that we have here, darker colors, again, more earth tones. 38% people voted for that. Of course, we have brick. 44 were preferred and 27 strongly preferred. Then we got, and this was surprising to me, we had precast concrete panels. That was, that garnered some votes as well. 42% of folks thought this was an interesting surface. But again, think about the neutral tonality of this as well. And then, of course, we have the glass and the glass window wall system that really promotes a transparent building. And that went universally liked. Then we talked about building entries. You know, here was really a gabled form. This was more of a warm soffitted approach. This was a large overhang. Here's the gable idea, more residential in nature. You can start to see, but 25% of people disliked it. Yeah, you know, we have this wood overhang that, you know, seemed to resonate with folks. Then we have a building that's more modern, really more transparent, more of a large entry overhang here, again, with these, you know, neutral materials here as a pier that, you know, 57% of folks liked. So then we got to exterior form in terms of what, you know, folks might think would be appropriate for this neighborhood and for this building. You know, here was more of a low-scaled entry. You know, here again was a higher entry form, really a floating plane form. And this one was interesting. This is more of a hybrid residential modern form. So here's kind of a simple roof form, right? But 36 and 33, neutral. Floating plane form with really the warm wood soffit, 42%. And then really the hybrid residential form, you know, garnered some support too, but also 25% dislike. So with that being said, you know, as designers, we start to take some of these cues, right, and some of these likes that these folks thought would be appropriate for this building. And we started to develop an exterior material palette. Now here you have 5 examples of materials. From left to right, we have a dark metal overhang with a wood soffit. We have a beige concrete masonry unit, you know, something that you might almost find at Cranbrook. Here we have white brick. We have white standing seam metal siding here. Think about the shadow lines that starts to create. And then, of course, we have neutral colored clear glass. So we started to think about, you know, the attributes that folks liked, material palettes to come up with a design of the building. So that being said, this is a rendering of the building, and we started to think about the texture of the building. The neutral color concrete block that happens at the child care area, the white brick that starts to surround the administrative area, the metal, the shingled standing seam metal panel that surrounds the upper reaches of the gymnasium, but yet we come back to a dark metal canopy, dark metal overhang, and with a wood soffit to start to warm the palette up. You have no mistaking where the entry to the building is in this elevation here. Moving around, you start to see how we have keyed in, we've identified the entry to next. You know, perhaps there's a sign right here as the canopy comes down and it meets the ground. So we're identifying not only the entrance to the building, but also the entrance to next. You can start to see the articulation that we're starting to show in the window wall systems. Again, giving that building texture and form and creating a crisp, modern interpretation of a community center. Here's the corner of the building. You can start to see the gymnasium in the background. You can start to see the shadowing and the texture from the standing seam metal panel that surrounds the pool volume. You know, in order to change at how this building really cuts the sky, we've developed really a nice parapet detail up there to give that building some character. You know, up here, this is the multipurpose room 1, or the art room, that's surrounded by glass, and then we do have actually spandrel glass above that. We move down Edgewood. You can start to see the pool volume. It's surrounded on 3 sides with glass, really letting light into that pool volume. We started to break down the scale of these volumes as well, in terms of materiality and in terms of detail. So we get to this portion of the of the building, which is the wellness area and the multipurpose room 4 beneath it. And that is all clad in brick. Beyond is the gymnasium. And we get to the corner of Lincoln and Edgewood, and we really start to reveal the gymnasium. You know, here we have heavily, these are deep mullions that still permit views into the gymnasium, but almost act as like vertical blinds. They still give a level of privacy to this space. You can start to see the articulation that we've provided to this portion of the building, and then also we have the strong articulation of the crown on the building as well. What this starts to look like on Lincoln, you start to see the different heights of the building, it's a different materiality. The fact that this is white really makes this building pop in context to the neighborhood. Here we've dropped down to the brick portion of the admin area. You can start to see that we've provided, glass all along Lincoln Avenue to really promote that view and that visibility into the gymnasium. Zooming out a bit, I'm walking westbound down Lincoln. You can start to see how the building meets Lincoln Avenue. The masonry wall here, that's screening the parking area. Very identifiable entry into the building here. Of course, we do have a mechanical screen wall that we'll need, right? That's covered in another panel. Front elevation, we have this landscape court that's on axes to the building itself, really leading you into the building. Start to see the different materiality that we've provided with the building in this elevation. So brick over the admin, some neutral concrete block and glass in child care, this nice glowing entry sequence, glass into the multi-purpose rooms, and again, glass and concrete block at this portion of the building here. From the park, you start to approach the building in this manner. We're able to provide a nice outdoor park area to the southern end of the building. Still have to develop that design-wise. But then zooming out, you start to see across the street from the church in this image here. This is actually, the church is actually built out. We've actually modeled this, based on the current design. But with that, we also had one more idea. We didn't stop there. So this is the exact same building, and we started to look at this building in more of an earth tone. So bringing in brick colors that we're more familiar with, making the concrete block a bit more yellow, almost like a sandstone or a limestone color here. Still keeping the dark entry for an accent and an emphasis on the building. Going more of a little darker of a gray to the metal panel that surrounds the gym. Start to see the change here. Really great contrast, between the materials. We still have that wood overhang that greets us as we come into the building. It provides a nice warm feel to the material palette. We've changed the window system mullions to be a dark bronze anodized to go with really the rest of the material palette. Here's what that corner starts to look like. And we all know when it gets a little darker, it becomes a little more recessive in nature. Again, from Edgewood, looking at the pool volume. Corner of Lincoln and Edgewood. And then, of course, you start to see the elevation on Lincoln itself, with the darker gray standing seam panel, the glass window wall system, deep, 10-inch deep fins to really emphasize the texture on that glass, and then the brick mass, the brick and glass, I should say, of the admin area. And then, of course, this is starting to see the building from a longer vantage point. Start to see how these materials really work with one another nicely and emphasize the different pieces and parts of the building, really breaking down the scale of the building as well. And this is a side-by-side comparison, looking at the white scheme, looking at the what we call the earth tone scheme. Elevations from the parking area. And then lastly, what it could look like from Lincoln. And you can start to see how the white will really pop, in the neighborhood, as a building. Or conversely, how it would start to recess because of materiality. And that's it, guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Very much. Well done. That was excellent. All right, let's throw it to the board. Anybody have any comments that they'd like to, or questions they'd like to ask? You guys, anyone want to dive in? I've got a few, so.
Well,
Mr. Boyle.
as is tradition, we should start with parking because we'll be with it for the rest of the years ahead. Do we have any data about current usage of parking at Next?
I do not. But there is a representative from Next here that may be able to help with that.
Okay. Has there been any data collected in a traditional parking survey that would give us a sense of the concentration of parking and how we can use that in the planning of this building?
If you don't mind coming forward and introducing yourself, that would be wonderful, please.
Good evening. Chris Braun, I'm the director of Next, and I'm a Birmingham resident. We don't have any formal parking studies, but I can tell you the light cement part of the light is an add-on. So what, we used to have an awful lot of parking issues until we covered up the Little League field, which is at the bottom left there. We use, at times, all of our parking. We also share that parking lot with the ECC, which is the early childhood. They have teachers on staff whose cars are there all day. So about 40 to 50 cars are there all day. The rest are the parents coming and going. Certain times of the day, Next is very full with speakers or concerts and things. So a couple of times a week, we are using quite a bit of that parking. And then several times a week, we have plenty of space. So I know that's not scientific at all. What I'm trying to say is, sharing with the Y, I think will be tight, except for you have those exterior, perimeter parking areas that you've identified, but not scientific, but we certainly do use quite a bit of it.
Can I ask a follow-up? Just to clarify that?
Go ahead, sir.
So my child actually went to the Early Childhood
Oh,
Center, so I have a lot of experience on this site.
Yeah, that's tight, isn't it?
Well, in my experience, the 45 spaces, I guess it's to the right of the screen here, that was primarily where the parents would come and pick up their children. Can I ask, does Next use any of that? Because I used to see most of the people from Next on the other lot.
Because we avoid, well, you guys start earlier, the childhood starts earlier, so we're not quite there yet. And in the afternoon, we've made an arrangement with the Childhood Center that we don't program between 3 and 4.
Okay.
So there's plenty of time, plenty of space for the parents to pick up, and we're not conflicted with that. So we do use the front throughout the day, absolutely, because it's
Okay.
closer. Our first room that juts out of the north there, well, the north of the, I don't think that's the north. What is
But
it?
do you-
You're absolutely
right. Oh, it's the
right.
north. I knew that.
Absolutely.
But is that out of
Yeah.
convenience or need? Like, I know that you've got, that would be 155 spaces. Do you really need that many
That's what I'm
on a given day? I've never seen that lot full.
I was going to say, not all the time, but certain times.
Well, there.
Since we added that Little League field, we do use most of the parking. with
On
the-
that side.
Well, we use both sides, I should say.
sides. Okay.
Because our entrance is at the north side on the left and on the east and west, and then the childhood entrance is below that.
down,
Go
yeah.
down, yep, right there, and on the other side also. So they park on each side too. But if you've never seen our lot full, then you're not there at the same time that we're full. But I wouldn't say all day, every day, but I would say for special events, absolutely.
Certainly special events. Okay.
One follow-up.
Go ahead, please.
I know that parking data is not always available, but I have a colloquial question which to ask. How many times have you had police coming in saying neighbors have complained about your users parking in front of their house?
Well, interesting you should say that. When you go onto Midvale, because the Seahomes parking's right there too, and they overflow into the streets.
Right.
So we had to put up, parking, no student parking or no parking on a certain part of the street. So it did allow us to park there because we did it after they started. And so we kind of fudged the times, start times. So we don't have the police anymore. because we've expanded into that Little League lot. Prior to that, quite a bit.
Okay.
And then now, unfortunately, a lot of those residential streets have no permit for residents only. So then that was a bit of a problem for us, but that's why we were able to luckily, pave over that Little League lot, and it helped tremendously.
Thank you.
Okay.
I will say, though, the police do come, one thought, we have a few fender benders, as you can imagine. And so I'm just wondering on the size of the parking spots, because some lots you go into and it's so tight, and others, they're generous. So I would just hope it would be more on the generous side, because,
It is.
we're seniors.
Yeah, and to note, those spaces that we've indicated, those are 9 by 18 spaces. No, sorry, 20 by 9 spaces with 24-foot aisles. So,
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Any other?
Mr. Boyle, any other comments?
No, I'm okay.
Who wants to go next?
I can.
You want me to sit down?
Thank you very much.
I'll say one thing. So I park in this a lot. I don't know if that includes, because quite often I have to park where those trees are on the far right side. You can see that it's all dirt where people park up on that side too. So that lot gets used a lot. I'm a big softball fan, and I was completely against when Next convinced the school to take out a Little League field because there's such a shortage in this town to pave over it, but they needed to. So parking can be quite an issue. All right, I will keep this to stuff that is planning board stuff that we would say to other developers or whatever.
Thank you.
The overarching thing, and listening to the presentation, that was excellent, by the way, is that this is a series of compromises, and it's due to the site being too small for what we're trying to do here. Parking, it's not good. Sometimes at the bank, credit union, I have to park on Lincoln because their 6 spots will be taken. And I mean, you're like really having to look to make sure you can get out of your door, get that door closed, and get around your vehicle before somebody comes down. Those are not the widest lane. I can't think of some of our, I'm thinking of certain seniors that I see over at Next, and I can't imagine these guys doing it. So those spots are off. If they park on the church, they're walking around the entire building to the entrance. So the parking is, I think, got a lot of issues, but we're trying to cram a lot in there. I do worry about the neighborhood encroachment. We all know it's going to happen, and we would jump on somebody if they were a developer because of that. 2, mass. The mass is, again, because we're doing too much on too small, to go 6 feet higher with all the single-family housing around that. I can't imagine a lot of people would be happy about that if you're living close to that. And not only it's 6 feet, it's not stepped back, it's pulled forward. I mean, we're out to the streets. So I feel like it's completely out of context. The quality, so I was, going back through some of the master plan stuff today, and, we really have a level of quality that we want in our civic buildings. And you showed a lot of beautiful buildings, but I think if you look at the civic buildings, for a community house in there versus some of the other beautiful buildings, they tend to be a little bit more traditional, but, that's maybe a matter of preference, but they do have very good materials. And I mean, we've done projects where we said, thinking about the fire station, we're like, oh my gosh, that's not Birmingham. So I didn't do a deep dive on this, but when I hear concrete slabs and stuff like that, I think when we're looking at another independent project, our ears kind of go up. And I don't know this for certain because I haven't really followed the process, but if we're trying to do too much with too little and then the quality of the civic building goes down, then, that's upsetting. The layout, I've been involved with Next for a long time. The secret sauce of Next versus, I think, a lot of other senior centers, I mean, I know versus Bloomfield Township, I'll just use that one, is that it is a really warm and inviting and nurturing environment. And it's able to do that because even though it shares a building, it spaces all together. And you're not winding around, there's not other folks there. If they are, they're about, 3 feet tall, and they're lost. And when I look at this, I know it works, you got it all in there, but I don't see that culture being able to thrive the way it is now. A few other concerns, I think for sure you got to do a traffic study on this thing. That's a lot in a little area. If I lived in those multifamilies and you did that to Floyd, I'd be quite cheesed that I have to drive through a parking lot and watch everybody who doesn't back up into me to get out of my house. And then photometrics, I mean, some of that with a lot of glass can let a lot of light out, so I think that's probably would be a good idea. So I'll wrap it up with just saying this is an enormous civic project, maybe as big as we've done since I've been in Birmingham, and yet not contemplated in any way, shape, or form in our master plan. And the thing of the master plan that's a great thing is that it's the one opportunity. It's like the census. You get the most input from the community because, you can have these QR codes. That's going to be a certain part of our community that's going to be able to weigh in that way. But it ignores a whole bunch that don't communicate that way. And you can do person to person, and that's going to get a different group. And the thing with the master plan is it uses all those techniques in the signage, and it was really well done. And it bothers me that perhaps the biggest project that we've done in decades skirted that process, our own process. And so that's it.
Other comments, Ms. Boyce?
Yep. So I think you used the site very, very well. And I especially appreciate the consideration you gave to the surrounding areas. I, until about 3-4 years ago, lived 1 block south of the Y, and I would walk to it then. And I now live 1 block north of the Y, and I walk to it now. It wouldn't even make sense for me to drive because I'm so close. So I like that you thought of the crosswalks and you lined up the way pedestrians might make their way through. Having lived south of it, St. James was our neighborhood park, and I appreciate so much how you have only improved that rather than push parking into it. I was afraid that might happen, and I saw some ideas where it was happening. So people, at least when I lived there and my kids were young and used that park all the time, people were, that park was important to them. And we have Pierce Elementary nearby, but it's not accessible during school hours. So people feel strongly about that, and I think you treated it with respect, and I like the walking path around it, so thank you for that, too. Internally, while I don't know how Next operates myself, pretty soon I might, but not yet. But as an interior designer and someone who's planning space all the time, the flow of this and the way you set things up is inviting to me. I would like to be in this space. I would be happy to continue to go to the Y here. I mean, much happier than I am now. We all know what it looks like, right? And I felt like there was a lot of consideration for seniors. And what I especially liked was the way that the different age groups would have the ability to be in the space together. I know how important it is having senior parents, what we contribute and what my kids contribute to their well-being when we're all together. And I suppose there's probably lots of studies to support that as well. And so this unity and this flow and the idea that we would cross paths with each other. I mean, it pleases me. It makes me really happy. I have just a couple questions. The height doesn't bother me at all, especially when you use the neutral palette. I think it's more appropriate because of its proximity to the neighborhoods to maybe not make it glowing white. It's my opinion. I think the neutral palette's much more appropriate. And I participated in the study that was online in February, was it?
Correct.
Sure, I was doing that from my home. And looking back at it, it seems to me that while some of the concrete buildings were preferred, they were also more of a warmer neutral color. So I didn't see anything white that anyone really embraced. So just adding to that, prefer the neutral color. I like that you're up to Lincoln. I think that's appropriate and right. And, while there are houses on the other side of Lincoln, I think there are just as many what I'll call commercial or non-houses within the same proximity. So I'm totally okay with the height, and particularly when you add the landscaping features, it really softens it. Glass, I want to talk about glass for a minute. I appreciate all that you showed. It's beautiful. It may, I don't normally say this, but it may be a little much. I'm usually pretty supportive of being able to see in and out, particularly in the administrative areas. I suspect that will maybe a higher window or something that's less likely to just end up with a roller shade over it, where we won't be walking down the street and seeing piles of paperwork and computers and all the kind of stuff that comes with an office. So maybe we're a little heavy on the glass in some places, but all in all, I think it's really great.
Mr. Cruz, if you don't mind maybe me jumping in since you serve on the committee.
Go ahead.
I assume you've had your hand on this. I'll take a few comments. I also really appreciate the site plan. I think you've done a very good job in that regard. When I first saw it, I was very disappointed that this didn't front Lincoln more. But the more I got into it, the more I see the crosswalk, the path down to the park. And I know that the buildings have forms that work and forms that don't. So I get it. So I think you've done what you can with this, and you've done it quite well. I'd like to confirm that on the, I guess that's the east side of Floyd, there's still going to be a public sidewalk behind that parking and the curb right there?
Right here?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, just confirming that. I agree with Mr. Jeffries that the use of Floyd is, for lack of a better planning term, a little hinky. But I also don't know what else to do. So I'm willing to probably relent on that and just say, hey, we have to park it. But it is a little odd. But, I think it's an interesting approach. The height and the massing, I agree with Ms. Boyce that I think the massing is generally appropriate. I think I'm okay with the extra height. However, one thing that I've noted in your all your renderings, which were beautiful, they were very close and cropped. And I felt a lack of context to the surrounding buildings. I really couldn't get a sense of this building versus the church or whatnot. I know you attempted to, but I just think the way they were done, when you come back, please try and address that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to make a difference to me. I'm leaning toward that 6 extra feet is probably okay. But I think it'd be nice to see that in the context of the surrounding buildings. I certainly, though, I'll go a step further. I don't think the bright white is at all appropriate for this location or this type of building. I know it's a very hip color pattern. You see 3/4 of the buildings, the homes going up in this town are white and black.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that 10 years from now, everybody's going to know that they were all designed and built in 2024, 2025. So I much prefer the warmer tones, the warmer hues. I think it's just actually more fitting toward a municipal. The brick, to me, to Mr. Jeffrey's point, is a material that I think is rather traditional and yet can still be done in a contemporary way. So I don't want to see the white, if you're asking my opinion.
Okay.
And I think that that would help, actually, the warmer tone actually helps with the height, to Ms. Boyce's point. What does concern me, and I agree with Ms. Boyce about the question about all of the glazing, which is odd because we're usually pushing for
Right.
more. I worry about the photometrics along Lincoln. There are single-family homes directly across the street, and we've got a 2-story high curtain wall of open glass in a gym that is going to be potentially beaming out toward their living rooms. So I'm worried about what that interaction is going to be.
Okay.
The pool interaction seems to work quite well, because the way you've handled that, I don't have any issues on Edgewood, but that front really bothers me, concerns me, I should say. So I think you need to look at that. What else? What are the hours? Do you have any sense of how late this is going to be open? I know it's probably not a fair question to you as the architect.
No,
But-
it's a fair question. Starting as early as, I want to say 6, probably 6 a.m.
Okay.
to probably 10 p.m.
At 10 p.m.
Yeah.
So more to my point about lighting and how this interacts with people's homes at 6 a.m. or at 8 p.m. as they're trying to sit down in their backyard. I talked about the context, I talked about the lighting. I think when you come back, I'd love to see ideas of what you think on signage. You said that we're not
Yeah.
overwhelming the community. We have pretty good sign standards, so I know that it won't be an issue, but I'd like to understand what the residents are going to see. I guess lastly, I agree with Mr. Jeffries and Mr. Boyle that I am concerned about traffic flow and parking, and I hate it always to come back to that. Before, we heard from the lady from Next when I was just referencing my experiences with Midvale, so many years ago. I thought, well, they don't use nearly that much lot. I can just help explain to people that they don't need all that much parking, but apparently they do. And I'm a little concerned. The program in this building seems really heavy to me. Like it's trying to be a lot of different things, or maybe everything, as opposed to focusing on being a few things and doing it really well, given the site that we have here. So that's my concern. If some of the, I'm hearing art rooms, and now I'm hearing this, that, and the other, adds to the more parking. There are, 4, 6 multi-purpose rooms or meetings? I don't know. It's not my place. I'm not judging the program. I'm simply stating it seems heavy, given the property that we have here. And if it was peeled back, I don't think that the parking concerns would be nearly as heavy, because the need wouldn't be there. So it's a concern. I don't want to go into the park. I really don't. But I also don't want to build a building that's going to immediately cause the surrounding neighborhoods to revolt because of traffic and parking. I think that was all that was on my list. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, before
Yeah.
our architect,
Yes,
can I
Mr. Boyle,
give a few comments?
please.
I think you've done a great presentation. If only we could get many of our other developers to come in here and present it in that way, we'd be doing a great job. So thank you for that.
Very well done.
I'd sell it to other people. You've got another business there. I'm going to disagree with my friend and colleague here on the board, and I'll speak very personally. I am eligible to be at Next. I joined Next a month ago. My name is on the list of the current newsletter. But the reason we didn't go was exactly the building. I don't find the building warm and comfortable. I find the building claustrophobic. I find the low ceilings puts me off. We all went to school. I don't want to go back to school. I mean, bluntly, it's absolutely bluntly. I want height. I want to feel I'm going into a different building, a community centre or a senior centre that has got space. Yes, small cubicles, and I think I applaud the way in which you even presented it. There's alternatives, a little study carrel there. Even our new building on Adams has actually done the same thing. If you go into the gym in the new building, what do we call it, Birmingham Point? They've got little rooms that lead you through, and you can go into different spaces, 5, 10, 15 people. I think it's great, so I'd encourage that. So I want the space. I'd like the bigger space. I think folks nowadays want that. I have one concern which we haven't raised, and it worries me. So I was in Naples. Everybody in Birmingham goes to Naples, don't they? So I went there and I found a really amazing county park in Naples, which has got all sorts of things going on. Beautiful baseball diamonds and volley park, everything. It's got a walking trail, big walking trail, much bigger than this, but the same idea. And they've got this fantastic community centre with all sorts of things going on. Really hard to get in the front door because it's sort of tucked around the back. There's a big aquatic centre that leads you in. You park, you go to the aquatic centre, but how do you get to the community centre? It's hard to know. If you come off the trail, you can't get into the community centre. Bang. That's my point. I'm a little bit concerned that we've got the same parking we've got just now is a division between the park and the Y. It really is. It's not integrated. You can't see somebody sort of just moving through if they need to go to the bathroom or the restroom. How do you do it? You go all the way up and into these doors. It doesn't feel that the outdoor, where it says, the park, you don't even have the park named. On this site plan, it says existing baseball field, proposed walking park. It's a name, hasn't it? What's it called?
St. James.
St. James's. Get it in there. Let's see the indoor and outdoor be brought together. That's what I would love to see. And so that we can do things indoors, outdoors, connect. Teenagers can move in and out, the kids can move in and out, and the seniors can move in and out as well from the open space to the outdoor. You've got a walking park, great, but you've got to go through the parking area to get to it, to get to the trail.
Can I make one clarification on something maybe I did? When I was talking about the warm environment, I agree. The ceilings are low. It's an elementary school from the 50s. It was the proximity of the front desk, the foyer, and the fact that when you're in the space, that is all next. You can't, you're not in and out of the space because I'm going to this room or that room. It's just that it's kind of cohesive.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
No, great points. Great points. Mr. Kozak, did you have anything else you wanted to?
Yeah, I got a couple things. One is, in regards to parking, at least my experience with this building type, the 3.5 per 1,000 gross square feet for a building of the size makes sense. Normally, it's in a farmer's field, or we tore down an old high school, and it's very isolated. This is a unique building that how many people, seniors might not walk, but some people walk and bike, and it sounds like you have some informal, formal relationships with adjacent property owners. And then if this building is so successful, that parking lot could grow where it says proposed YMCA, whatever. It's not like we're stuck and we have no outlet whatsoever. So, my sense of it is that it'll be tight. It'd be interesting to know if you look at the YMCA schedule and next, kind of like you did with the school, and like who's coming and when, and can you plan around it to avoid certain things. But at least at the moment, if using your 3.5 per 47,000 square feet, what is it? It's 165, and you've got on-site 125, and then your perimeter parking was another 103 or something like that.
Correct.
Right, so So staff, sometimes you don't get to park at the front, or you get to park across the street or whatever, so, and we're used to that. This is unique, this is urban. Some comments on the site plan, I would, so a 24-foot wide drive aisle, I'm going to ask you. I mean, our ordinance oddly does not dictate the width of a drive aisle, or it says a parking space is 180 square feet, could be 1 foot by 180 or whatever, is, in theory, could. So I'm not, could you take 4 feet out of the east aisle and 4 feet out of the west aisle? Now you've got 8 feet to play with, and can you create a stronger edge up against the building or a stronger edge on the east? I think that's worth looking at, if you've involved your civil engineer yet in that conversation. The other thing is I think this is, this is this transition between, it's not quite urban, but there's a little bit of urban going on, and then it's the most non-urban thing to the south, the park. I think that's a great opportunity, and, I think you kind of, maybe it was magic or something, but the fact that there's a current pedestrian path across Lincoln that lines up, I'd like to see that north-south, I'm not even going to call it sidewalk, I'm going to call it promenade, call it something. And, in lieu of, and I'm not saying this is the answer, but I'm using our downtown, for example, we would not put sidewalk, a 10-foot strip of grass and trees, we would sort of do the reverse of that or something. We'd put concrete up against the edge of the building so you can walk by and look in the multipurpose room. Think of that as a building front and not looking to sort of soften it. So I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm saying you got Mike Dool on your team. I think there are opportunities there that you don't have, when you're doing this in a farmer's field or something, to really activate that dialogue between the pedestrian and what happens within the building. I'd like to see, is there, I hope that little dental building goes away someday and becomes a 30-foot high something and rotates. But the screen wall along Lincoln, can that be reinforced so it's not just a brick screen wall like the rendering showed, but does it have some piers? Does it have some, is there a gate at the front entrance? Is there an opportunity for a sign? Is there something to have some of the architecture of the building sort of, sprawl across and link to the dental building? And then a detail, but the sidewalk material is always dominant, so the sidewalk on Lincoln, should be concrete across whatever that is. Your rendering showed in front of the building, striped pedestrian sort of thing, and those go away after a while. Can you extend the plaza out in front of the building and link it to that node of trees in that island so that you know that there's something different happening there? You're going to slow down as pedestrian. Maybe even, on someday it's a place to corral that and have some outdoor activity or something. Treat it like you feel like you're not just driving through a parking lot with curb and gutter and all this other stuff. And regarding
Like a table.
Yeah.
Table it.
yeah, like the train station in Troy, almost Birmingham or something, does a little bit.
Not like that, that's not very well done.
Okay.
But table, you basically have that as an element. that
But
you have to ramp up the drive a little bit.
just something that just says, let's not just do it like a common, developer would do.
Play with materials on that too.
Right. Same thing with I'm going to call it the promenade,
Yeah,
south
down here.
into.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Let the concrete go through. It's got a different texture. I think when you arrive at the park, was it Robin who made the comment that, have a sense of you've arrived, so there's maybe a node at the north, there's a node at the south, and there's a node at the front entrance. And I think that plaza, just south of the building, I think is a great opportunity. I think there was even talk about some outdoor program space to sort of the south. And Regards to the architecture, I guess we don't get the big colors typically, right? But I do like the warmer palette over the, I think it's more recessive. I think it's more transitional. I think it'll last better over time. If it gets dirty, you can't tell. And then I think you've done a nice job of using different materials to express functions within the building, much like, what's it called,
Birmingham Point.
Birmingham Point or something. The fitness center is expressed differently the other parts of the building. So I like the fact that the gym looks different than the, than the office environment and the child watch and other sorts of things. And I mentioned this at another meeting recently, that I think there's a great opportunity for sculpture, art, other things to kind of get embedded into the, that's right, that's the third rail, isn't it? But I think there's opportunity there too. I see it happening throughout town, and I would really tap into your site designer and find ways to kind of be creative about improving that pedestrian experience to the site. I think that's it.
Okay. Were you asking me a direct question on parking?
On the parking, on the
drive?
aisle, yes.
So in my experience,
Unofficially.
yes, I'm not getting paid for this, so it's not my official answer. But I have designed many a site with 20-foot drive aisles.
20-foot.
Now, those are in conditions much like this where you've got tight quarters. We're dealing with a patronage here that is going to skew very much older, and I don't mean that to be silly or make fun. It's going to skew older, and you've got 9-foot wide parking spaces, which is about the minimum. I don't know that I'd say 20-foot makes a whole lot of sense. The extra 8 feet you're going to get, I'm kind of tossing in the air whether or not that's going to be impactful. Could you go to 22 and I'd feel very comfortable? Yeah, I guess you could, but I don't know if it's going to necessarily provide any sort of real bang for that buck.
Or maybe it's 24 in front of a building because you might have somebody's dropping
And don't
somebody
forget,
off
with
at
the
front
fire
entrance.
marshal's going to have to be involved in that conversation too, because you're going to have a fire lane back there, so.
Right.
22 is probably the smallest they even
Right.
let you go.
Right.
Yeah, and also, here is the minimum, at 24 feet, that, the site is a little bit of a parallelogram. So it does widen out down here, just small point. Just want to let you know.
So it's 24 and then 26 or something?
Yeah, it might even be more than that, down here. Down there, you get to the.
Well,
center of the site.
don't give that to the pavement. As the civil engineer here, don't give that to the pavement, Mr. Architect. Have your civil square that whole thing out and give that 2 feet to the grass or something. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, there's no point in paving an extra 3 feet just to follow a line. All right, any other comments at the board level?
One.
Oh, yes, Mr. Boyle.
This building is proposed to come on stream just when the city is devoting a lot of resources and time to sustainability. Tell us what you've done to make this a sustainable building, particularly how it's capturing solar energy.
It's interesting you said that. We talked about this, last night, actually, regarding sustainable features. Right now, and it's also timely that you ask this question because Michigan just adopted the 2019 Michigan Mechanical Code. So that actually pushes us, so if we were to do this a LEED building, right? Want to make it certified or silver, actually the new mechanical code takes care of being LEED certified. So we're already incorporating that within the cost and within the development of the building. So to go to a LEED silver, that does cost more money. And in fact, we'll be discussing that Monday night in terms of what that premium is to go, to a higher level of LEED certification. But in terms of using geothermal, in terms of using solar, we haven't. We actually had a conversation with our mechanical engineers today, and electrical engineers today, about what the payback on those systems typically is. I'm not going to lie or sugarcoat it. It's typically a long period of time. We did one for Washtenaw Community College, a geothermal system. The entire building is geothermal. It was a significant first cost, and it was about a 29-year payback. So, so those are things that we are going to be prepared to talk about on Monday, what those paybacks and what the costs of those first costs of those systems may be.
Okay, thank you.
So,
At least it's on the agenda.
yep.
Excellent. All right. To the public, is there anyone from the public that would care to comment on the pre-application that has been made? I don't see anybody on Zoom that looks to be from the public. I don't see anybody here that's, oh, George.
Hi,
Welcome,
George Dogard. Good to see you guys.
As well.
Couple things. Let me get my notes here. One, I'd like a little more feedback from, Janelle made a point, but also other planning board members as far as the setback at the frontage line. My feeling is we should get back a little bit and have more landscaping, so I'd like to have a little more discussion from all the members on that point. The okay, then the also I like the neutral tone, neighborhood and everything, but white is just cross that off. Okay. Too much glass. I agree with that point too from the planning board. I think we have some time to, and I've been in a lot of the meetings, and I don't think the city has asked for a traffic study. Usually on a building of this size, we do traffic studies, and I think there's enough time. We're going to go most likely to a November bond vote, so I think there's time here in the next couple months. For example, the traffic consultant that did Whole Foods, excellent job, and I mean, I think we have a good, I'm not familiar with our current consultant, but the one we've had prior to that, Labadie, was excellent. And again, Whole Foods was done very well, and just, I know Newman Smith has their expertise, but I think having an expert traffic consultant would help on this particular site. I'm not really too concerned about the parking in some respects. One, if you look at the trends, I don't know if it's going to be the next 5 years, but this is a 50-year building, and you have ride share coming and other alternatives. Plus, there's the opportunity, people adapt to parking, so maybe at a next function, we could encourage people to, buddy up and, one person drive 4 people to an event or whatever, things like that. So I think there's that adaptability. It is a tight site, but I think it with Newman Smith and others, the design is very good, and it'll work. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, George. Anyone else from the public here to comment? I don't see anybody else standing up. One last time to Zoom. I don't see any hands going up on Zoom. All right, we'll bring it back to the board.
I'd make a motion to approve this building and go forward and build it.
There's no motions.
My body share would second it,
All right, thank you with that. With that, I don't know if there's anything else the board would like to comment on with regard to this, but I appreciate you coming forward. It was an excellent presentation. It's good work.
Thank you.
And I think our comments are fairly consistent, actually, as I hear them across the board. So I don't think that there's a ton of debating to go back and forth, just whether or not you want to listen to us at all.
The Weinstein.
That's probably her
So
job.
Weinstein?
I warned him about the white.
Yes, he did.
Jokes are getting out of hand, fellas.
Yes. All right, Mr. Dupuy, I don't see anything else on the agenda. Do you have anything else to bring before the board tonight?
Wouldn't that be funny, but no.
It would be on brand, sir. It would be on brand.
No, not at all, not at all.
All right, with that then,
Surfaces.
with that, meeting adjourned.
Thank you very much for accommodating.
Thank you. Appreciate you bringing us involved.
Recording stopped.
Question for you, Mark. Now that somebody brought up the Whole Foods,